Folks, we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned trade war brewing. And not just any trade war, mind you. This one's between the two biggest economies on the planet, the United States and China. It's like a heavyweight title fight, except instead of punches, they're throwing tariffs at each other. Now you might be thinking, John, tariffs? That sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry. But trust me on this one, this stuff matters. This isn't just about some abstract economic theory. It's about real jobs, real people, and the real cost of groceries. This trade war has the potential to shake the global economy to its core. We're talking stock market swings, supply chain disruptions, and maybe even a recession. So buckle up, Buttercup, because things are about to get bumpy. It all started back in 2018 when the Trump administration decided to slap a 10% tariff on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. This move was part of a broader strategy to address what the administration saw as unfair trade practices by China, including intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers. The goal was to pressure China into changing these practices by making their goods more expensive in the U.S. market. Now, tariffs are basically taxes on imported goods. When a tariff is imposed, the cost of the imported item goes up, making it less competitive compared to locally produced goods. This is supposed to encourage consumers to buy domestic products, thereby boosting the local economy. The idea was to make Chinese products more expensive and give American companies an edge. By leveling the playing field, the administration hoped to revive American manufacturing and reduce the trade deficit with China. The expectation was that American companies would benefit from increased demand for their products, leading to more jobs and economic growth.
China, being no one's pushover, promptly retaliated with tariffs of their own on American goods. They targeted key industries like agriculture, automobiles, and technology, aiming to hit the U.S. economy where it would hurt the most. This move was designed to pressure the U.S. into backing down by creating economic pain for American exporters and farmers.
And so began a tit-for-tat tariff battle that escalated quickly. Each side kept raising the stakes, imposing higher tariffs on a wider range of goods. This back and forth created a lot of uncertainty in global markets, affecting not just the US and China, but also other countries that are part of the global supply chain. Before you knew it, we were talking about hundreds of billions of dollars worth of goods being hit with these tariffs. The scale of the trade war was unprecedented, and it had far-reaching consequences for businesses and consumers alike. Companies had to navigate a complex and rapidly changing trade environment, which made planning and investment decisions much more difficult. The problem with tariffs is that they act like a hidden tax on consumers and businesses. When the cost of imported goods goes up, businesses often have no choice but to pass those costs on to consumers in the form of higher prices. This can lead to inflation, reducing the purchasing power of consumers, and potentially slowing down economic growth. Those extra costs, yeah, they get passed down the line, eventually ending up in your pocket. Whether you're a business owner trying to manage higher input costs, or a consumer facing higher prices at the checkout counter, the impact of tariffs is felt across the board. It's a ripple effect that can affect everything from the cost of raw materials to the price of finished goods. So that new TV or washing machine you've had your eye on, get ready to shell out some extra cash. The trade war has made many everyday items more expensive, and those costs add up over time. For families on a budget, this can mean making tough choices about what to buy and what to put off until later. The long-term effects of these tariffs are still unfolding, but one thing is clear. The trade war has left a lasting impact on the global economy. Now you might be thinking, John, this all sounds very dramatic, but how does it affect me personally? Well, let me tell you a little story about a small town in America's heartland. Imagine a town where the main industry is soybean farming. These farmers have been selling their soybeans to China for years, but then bam, China slaps a tariff on American soybeans. Suddenly those soybeans are a lot less appealing to Chinese buyers. The farmers are stuck with a surplus of soybeans they can't sell. Prices plummet. Some farmers are forced to sell their farms. Businesses in town start closing down. People lose their jobs. And it's all because of a trade war happening thousands of miles away. It's not just small towns feeling the pinch either. Economists across the board are warning that this trade war is hurting both the US and Chinese economies. They're talking about slower economic growth, job losses, and higher prices for consumers. Even the International Monetary Fund, which is about as exciting as watching a documentary on tax law, has come out and said that this trade war is a bad idea. They've warned that it could shave a significant amount off global economic growth.
But hey, who needs experts, right? I mean, what do they know?
They're just people who have spent their entire lives studying economics.
What do they know about economics?
Section 5. Deficits in factories, the numbers don't lie. Let's talk numbers for a second. The U.S. trade deficit with China has been a sore spot for years. It basically means that the U.S. buys a lot more stuff from China than China buys from the U.S. One of the arguments for these tariffs was that they would help reduce the trade deficit and bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. But has it worked? Well, not so much. The trade deficit with China has remained stubbornly high, and while some companies have moved manufacturing back to the U.S., it hasn't been on the scale that some people were hoping for. In fact, some companies have actually moved their manufacturing out of China to other countries to avoid the tariffs. Section 6. China's new groove, not so easily rattled. Now let's talk about China for a minute. The country has been a focal point in global economics for decades, and its influence continues to grow. The Chinese economy has changed a lot in recent years. It's undergone a significant transformation, evolving from a manufacturing powerhouse to a leader in technology and innovation. It's not just the factory of the world anymore. China is now a major player in high-tech industries, producing cutting-edge technology and pioneering new advancements. They're moving up the value chain, focusing on things like technology and innovation. This shift is evident in their increased investment in research and development, focusing on things like technology and innovation. Chinese companies are now at the forefront of developing new technologies, from artificial intelligence to renewable energy solutions.
This means that China is less reliant on exports to the United States than they used to be. Their economic strategy has diversified, reducing their vulnerability to external shocks. They've got a growing domestic market, and they're finding new trading partners around the world. This diversification is helping to stabilize their economy. So, while these tariffs are definitely hurting China, they're not crippling the country like they might have a decade ago. The resilience of the Chinese economy is evident in its ability to adapt and thrive under pressure. They're not crippling the country like they might have a decade ago. The Chinese middle class is expanding, and with it, the domestic consumption is rising, providing a buffer against external economic pressures.
China is also playing the long game. Their strategic vision extends far into the future, with plans that span decades rather than years. They're investing heavily in things like artificial intelligence, robotics, and renewable energy. These investments are not just about immediate returns but are aimed at securing a dominant position in the future global economy. They're basically betting that in the long run, they'll come out ahead in the global economy, even with these tariffs in place. By focusing on innovation and sustainable growth, China is positioning itself to be a leader in the next wave of global economic development. Section 7, Shein's valuation woes, a sign of the times. Let's take a look at a specific company that's been caught in the crossfire of this trade war, Shein. You know Shein, right? It's that ultra-fast fashion company that's taking over the world with its trendy clothes and ridiculously low prices. Well, Shein is based in China, and while they don't sell directly to the United States, they do rely on Chinese factories and suppliers. And guess what? Those factories and suppliers are being hit with tariffs. This has led to higher costs for Shein, which they've had to pass on to consumers in the form of higher prices. And it's also made investors nervous. Shein's valuation has taken a hit recently, with some experts pointing to the trade war as a contributing factor. Section 8. Global markets shutter central banks on high alert. This trade war isn't just a United States-China thing either. It's sending shockwaves through the global economy. Stock markets around the world have been on a roller coaster ride, with investors spooked by the uncertainty. Central banks, those mysterious institutions that control interest rates and the money supply, are also watching the situation closely. They're worried that this trade war could trigger a global economic slowdown. Some central banks have already cut interest rates in an attempt to stimulate their economies. Others are waiting to see how things play out before they make a move. But one thing's for sure, everyone's on edge. Section 9, the uncertain future, brace yourselves. As we delve into the murky waters of what lies ahead, it's clear that uncertainty is the only certainty. So what does the future hold for this trade war? The stakes are high, and the global economy hangs in the balance. Honestly, your guess is as good as mine. The unpredictability of the situation leaves everyone, from seasoned economists to everyday citizens, scratching their heads. Both the United States and China seem dug in, and neither side seems willing to back down. The political standoff is intense, with each country holding firm to its demands and strategies. Some experts believe that a trade deal is still possible. They argue that with enough negotiation and compromise, a resolution could be reached that benefits both sides. Others are less optimistic, predicting that this trade war could drag on for years. The prolonged conflict could have far-reaching consequences affecting everything from global supply chains to local businesses. One thing's for sure, this is a high-stakes game of chicken, and the consequences for the global economy could be severe. The financial markets are already showing signs of strain, and the uncertainty is causing widespread concern. So, there you have it, folks. The situation is complex, and the outcome is far from certain. The United States-China Trade War, a confusing, frustrating, and potentially disastrous situation. The impact is being felt across the globe, from stranded cargo ships to empty store shelves. I wish I had better news for you, but I'm just a comedian with a fake news show. My job is to make you laugh, even when the news is anything but funny. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go stock up on canned goods and bottled water, just in case. After all, in times of uncertainty, it's always good to be prepared. Whether it's a trade war or a natural disaster, having a little extra on hand never hurts. And remember, it's not just about stockpiling for yourself. Think about your community and how you can support each other. In challenging times, solidarity and cooperation can make all the difference. So, brace yourselves, stay informed, and stay connected. Together, we can navigate these uncertain waters and come out stronger on the other side.